Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and welcome back here to Tansson Talks TV. We are so excited to have you here today.
Yep, we're happy to have you back.
Yeah, so, Mom, first of all, how are you doing today?
I am doing fine on a wonderful Monday afternoon.
Awesome. And what show do we have set for here today?
Well, our audience is going to be a little surprised. We have Quantum Leap, but not the old one. We've already talked about that. This is the new version.
Yeah, we are speaking about the 2022 to present revival of the series, uh, sequel series, in my opinion. But I'm definitely excited to get into this.
Yep, I'm excited too.
Yeah, so to provide you all some insight, so this show started in September of 2022, and the second season is set to come out this week as of recording this. So I'm very excited to get into it.
Yep, I am too.
Yeah, so without further ado, Mom, if you're able to let us know the synopsis of this first episode produced from Universal Content Productions and Universal Television.
I sure will. Um, as Brandon kind of said, we are concentrating on, of course, the new revived show of Quantum Leap. And so the episode actually begins with a quote, and it says, in 1995, theorizing one could travel within their own lifetime, Dr. Samuel Beckett stepped into the quantum leap accelerator and vanished. And so begins this new version of the series. This in this particular series, there are a multiple group of characters, unlike the first series that was on. And so, but the two main characters that are introduced pretty quickly are Ben and Addison. Ben and Addison, we learn are engaged to each other. We learn that because there is a party that is occurring for both of them, and at this particular party, we do see that everyone that Ben and Addison do work with are at this party, and all of them appear to be scientists based upon what we understand about the little that we can gather. Um, the event at the right before the party, we do get a scene, and the scene is a lady who is sitting at a computer, and she texts Ben, and she says, "Can't be." And that's how it kind of introduces everything. Then we have the party scene. Um, Ben and Addison speak to each other. We do discover that Ben is not much of a talker. He is not really a party person. He is someone who likes being with Addison and, of course, with the scientific world also. And so he is forced in this party to actually speak, and he does speak about the laws of entanglement, which is which, just to lay a little background for him, he causes two particles enter a shared state. They are no longer separate entities, they actually exist as one. And this becomes a basis a little later in the show, but for right now, we're just kind of introduced to this one particular law of science. But both of them seem to be having a good time at the party along with everyone else. And then we see that Ben gets a text. Ben, reads his text, and he is told to call someone ASAP. The message that we get is actually that whoever sent the message says they're running out of time and the window is closing. And very quickly after that, the next scene is you see Ben in a scientific area, and then some sort of magical zapping or whatever goes on, and and then the next scene right after that is we see Ben in a car, and he is speaking to a strange man, or attempting to speak to a strange man anyway, and he doesn't quite know what's going on. He looks in the mirror and sees another self. So he thinks of himself, he is himself, but he looks in the mirror and sees that he is really a strange person, or a different person. The next thing we see is Addison, his fiance, who kind of comes running up, and she said, "Why did you leap?" And then we later find out that that Ben is really kind of like a hologram that kind of can go from the past to the future a little bit, and so he is actually in the van. Um, and then from there, Even though Ben has sleep, what I think is really important about this episode to kind of note is that some of the history of the show to help the people to guide you through watching it is actually given in this particular episode. And so I'm going to kind of go over, although I'll talk a little bit about his leaping, I really want to talk about some of the things that occur that's given that I think is really important in this first particular episode of the series, because it has to lay the groundwork so that people understand what's going on. We do by Addison and Ben speaking to each other back and forth. Once more, just to emphasize, Addison really is kind of a hologram, and Ben is there, but Ben is the only one who can see Addison. We learned that Ben has uploaded a new operating system, and it's a code that's done before leaping. We learned that they actually have some sort of computer system that kind of helps Ben, and this computer system is called Ziggy, and it's really just a powerful AI system. Um, while Ben and Addison are speaking to each other, we have people also in the office who are wondering where Ben is and trying to figure out how to help him and how to bring him back. And so we're introduced to some of the characters at that point in time a little bit more in depth. We're introduced to Magic, who is his boss, the boss for both Addison and Ben. We are introduced to Jan, and we're also we're introduced to Jan, and then Jen rather. I'm sorry, and then we're also introduced to Ian, and so Ian is back at the office because he's the person who is actually doing some of the technology part of it, trying to figure out how to bring him back. And Ian actually makes a comment, and he says he knew that Ben knew the technology was not ready. He must have had a good reason for using the technology at that time. Magic, the boss, is saying that the Pentagon's asking questions, um, and that everyone has said that Ben did not tell anyone he was going to leap. He just kind of did it. We also learned that a machine, meaning Ziggy, actually determines where he goes, and apparently this was a design flaw from the original leaper of Sam Beckett. They do refer back to Sam, and and they said that when Sam was leaping from person to person, they said he liked to help what once went wrong, and that Sam never made it home from his leaping. But Addison was to do her best to kind of guide Ben home. Um, we learned that Ben does speak different languages. This is just different. Addison kind of mentions this at some point. Um, and then during the episode a little later, like I said, we're kind of keeping with the scientists right now. One of the scientists, Jen, shows the boss Magic an image, and we see that Ben is actually in the image and is showing that Ben is working with someone. We just can't see who that someone is. So, like I said, so she finds the scrambled security footage, and her goal is to figure out who is actually in this particular image. She later finds out that there is a ring that stands out in the image, and it comes to find out later that this particular ring actually belongs to a Navy platoon from a Navy platoon in Vietnam, and it belongs to Al, something similar to what Al Calavici used to wear. And Al was the original quote unquote Addison in the first version, and so they're trying to do a really good job of bringing them both the shows back together to kind of intertwine with each other. And so they meaning that this Jen person and Magic the boss, they believe that Janice, who is Al's daughter, could be the one who's wearing the ring. And so, because she wanted to follow in her father's footsteps. And then, um, and then now I'm going to go back just a little bit, just to talk about a little bit of the leaping. And I'm not going into much depth with the leaping, but in essence, in this particular episode, what Ben is there to do is to help a gentleman who is actually on per se the wrong side of the law, or looking that he's going in that direction. But we're finding out that he needs money for his, I'm not quite sure if it's a girlfriend or his wife, but he needs money for her, and she's in dialysis, and he has a daughter also. And so Ben helps him in a sense that helps him kind of get out of that particular situation. And so you'll have to watch the episode itself to kind of see what kind of situation that was. But that's what Ben's goal was, to help him get out of that particular situation, and to also stop an explosion from occurring. And so that's where all that goes on there. And then once Ben does help this particular person, Ben does leap into another person, and he leaps into an astronaut, and that's where the next episode begins. One last point that I do want to bring up is that Addison later does. She realizes that she has Ben's phone. She's back in her apartment later, and she realizes she has Ben's phone, and he apparently left a message for her before he leaped. And he said he was sorry, but he said that his kind of like the mission was much bigger. He said it was worth it, and he has to be done, and he'll find a way back home. So, Brandon, I know that was a lot, but I just wanted to kind of give the background a little bit for the series.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for providing the background and synopsis.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and so I guess taking a deeper dive, into this episode, which the episode's titled July 13th, 1985. At the very beginning of the episode, they mention that 1995 is when Dr. Beckett of the original series, went into the Quantum Leap project for the first time. But I find this so interesting because the original series started, in our time in 1989 and ended in 93. And so it then begs the question for me whether the original show took place in the time that it was made, or if it was set earlier. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that too, because I think we both, once we saw the 1995, we both pulled out our phones trying to figure out to see if we missed something from the first episode. And the only thing that, of course, that I could gather, and that you could gather also, was that they made apparently a comment was made in the first episode that it takes place in the near future. And that was the only glimpse that we had of the time period. And so, once more, we were a little confused about that. But but apparently we missed that one line somewhere, because I never thought that it took place in 95.
Yeah, so I definitely find that interesting. I'm not sure, where that time is, but again, I haven't seen enough of the original series to know if it did or did not take place then, but not like we focus much on the present day then either.
Yes, true.
But yeah, and I would say, like, in evaluating Ben as a character, like before he leaps and then during the leap, I feel like you
Hmm.
almost see two different sides of him because he seems very reserved, at his engagement party. He doesn't really seem to be very out there. They mentioned a few times he doesn't like parties or social events or anything of the sort, but he seems much more enthusiastic and everything after the leap. So then it begs the question, since he doesn't really remember anything, you know, how his personality has shifted and how his relationship with Addison has shifted as well.
Yep, that is true too. Because he does make a point, like you said. He says that he does not like being the center of attention. Then all of a sudden, he is the center for all of these leaps that he's going to do.
Yeah, and even throughout the episode, Ben does a lot of heroic stuff, so to speak. And Addison constantly remarks, "Who are you right now?"
Yeah.
Because it just seems so out of character for her observing him.
Yes, she does. She makes that comment quite a few times.
Yeah, and even with going through it, seeing the different, I guess, as I say, workmates, co-workers with
Hmm.
Ben, meeting Jen and Ian and Magic, I really like that we get to see a bit of Ben's life before the leap, whereas on the previous series, I know we went straight into the leap, without knowing a lot of context, where at least now we know at least there's some sort of motive that we don't know what it is, and
Hmm.
there's and that we know that there's something going on, but it's like uncovering a mystery a little bit.
Yeah, and there's this particular show. For this version of the show, to me, seems to have a lot of layers, and it's kind of shown from the beginning. Whereas the other show, when we watched the original Quantum Leap, yes, there were layers, but it was only two characters. And so we really only explored those two characters. And then this show, because there's so many other characters here, and of course they have the back plot that they can go back to and refer to. It's interesting how they intertwine them both.
Yeah, and yeah, having seen this whole first season, before this, I will say too that I really like the addition of the extra characters without saying too much, and I think that all of them just do such a great job at adding to the fun and mystery of the show, and it definitely was a go-to watch for us every week.
Yeah, it sure is.
But yeah, and then I would say, what would you say is one of your favorite parts of this episode?
I guess, because watching it the second time around, because I don't know if when we started to watch, the first question I asked you was, is this a 2 hour episode? And you said no, and I was surprised. And so I think just knowing that all of this history was done pretty quickly, and I didn't realize that the first time I watched it, that, all of the background was just laid in pretty nicely. And so, and I also, the first time I watched it, didn't really, not to say that I didn't pay attention to the leaping, but I didn't, that leaping storyline, I didn't realize all the intricacies that they kind of put into that particular storyline too.
Yeah, and I will say too, for anyone who is watching our commentary but has not seen the episode, I don't believe you really need to have watched the previous series to watch this one, but I certainly think having the background helps, enhance the
Yeah,
experience.
it does. Yes.
Yeah, because I know when we went into it, I was not familiar at all with the original series. I mean, sure, I may have seen like a scene or two like quite a while ago, but I didn't
Mm.
remember any of it. But definitely, this first episode intrigued me, and I had forgotten. This is my third time viewing. I had forgotten how much really happened in this episode because I had
Mm.
mentally figured that this stuff had happened. Maybe
Mm.
over the first 2 or 3 episodes, but no,
Yeah.
all of this was this one.
Yes. Yes. And like I said, it kind of helped a little later when the series progressed to know, all of this was already there.
Yeah, but going back to the question I'd asked, though, I would say that for me, my favorite part, well, one of the funniest parts, in my opinion, about this episode is right after Ben leaps into his first host, and we see him trying to figure out what's going on because he's really confused. But, he's helping um, but Ben is really helping out as the getaway driver for this heist, and so he's talking to Addison, but of course he can only hear Addison. But the funny thing about it is he's often saying stuff along the lines of like, "I don't know what I'm doing," or what's happening, and the people in real time are asking like, "What do you mean you don't know? Like you're our getaway driver. You're supposed to be like driving us."
I know, I know. And then I also thought it was funny that since he speaks five languages, all of a sudden he understands one of the characters that's in the plot, and then he speaks back in the other language, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, it does make you like figure out the question of like how much of this is stuff that's still conscious, even though he doesn't have his memory back. How much he
Yeah.
still interprets and remembers.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, but did you have any other notes that you'd like to mention for this first episode of the Quantum Leap revival?
Now I miss my theme song because there's not really a theme song to this one. So I missed that. It made me go back and forth like, what version did I like better? I don't think I could actually give an honest answer to that. I think I'd have to go back and watch some of the previous again to know which version I like a little better. Um, so, but yeah, no, I just thought it was a nice first episode. It held its own, and I think it has a new audience that's coming to watch it, which is great.
Yeah, and I really love what with even like the writing, what they do with this whole first season, and it makes me all the more excited to tune into season 2 in just a couple days from recording this, and so I'm so excited to tune into it, and I'm glad that we were able to watch this episode and give us a little refresher for ourselves of what's happening, what's going on.
Yep, I'm glad too.
Oh yeah, well, This is always so exciting for us to do. And did you have any notes for us as we tune out this? I mean, so did you have any notes for us, for the audience as we begin to close out this discussion?
I don't have any additional notes, but I will say this: as you watch the episode, I just encourage people to, if you don't remember, go back and watch this particular episode again. Leave notes in the comments, or let us know what your thoughts and views are on either or both shows, and then also give us suggestions for other shows to watch too.
Absolutely. I definitely am very excited to watch all the amazing shows that you all will recommend and see all of your amazing comments, down below.
Yep, that sounds good. I look forward to it too.
Yeah, well, thank you all so much, and thank you, Mom, for always coming on for these discussions.
Oh, you are welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, well, for those of you watching, take care and enjoy the rest of your week.
All right, have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye.